Welcome to Girl Choose Yourself, where we're trading self-doubt for self-trust and settling for soaring. I'm Emer Zone, your host, and together we're building the confidence to create lives so deliciously bold that they scare us a little, but in the best possible way. Because life's too precious to stay cozy in our comfort zones. It's time to choose ourselves for lives that are fabulous and soulfully fulfilling. So let's go. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Emer Zone. And today we're talking about something that has probably stolen more of your time, your energy, your confidence than you might realize. And that is something that we often hear referred to as the comparison trap. Just picture this. It's like an evening, say it's 10 o'clock in the evening, and maybe you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram and you see somebody's perfectly curated life. And maybe it's a woman your age, maybe it's someone who's just launched a business that's already thriving. Or maybe it's somebody with a body that looks nothing like yours, but you wish that yours did, or a relationship that seems effortlessly happy, and you feel that familiar sinking feeling in your chest, or maybe it's in the pit of your stomach. And that feeling isn't accidental, it's engineered. The algorithm knows exactly what it's doing. It knows exactly what it's doing, and the cost of all this comparing that we're all doing, well, it's so much bigger than just that feeling of, I feel a little bad about myself, or I begin to judge myself. Today I'm going to look at 3 real and hidden costs of this comparison that we all tend to fall into. And it really steals things from us beyond just our mood, beyond depressing our mood or making us feel a little bit shit and bad about ourselves. And then I'm going to give you one research-backed protocol that really works. Not just the usual, well, you just have to delete the apps, don't you? Just not turn on your phone. But a real research-backed protocol that actually works that you can start using from today. Something that will address why we compare in the first place. So really getting into the nitty-gritty and the root of the problem. Because the truth is, you can't just willpower your way out of comparison. I've no time for relying on willpower. It's so unpredictable and unreliable, and we've all experienced that. And when willpower fails, we just end up in another fucking spiral of blaming ourselves. So we're going to really look at understanding what this is costing us and building something stronger in its place. So let's dive in. I hope this is going to be so helpful for you. So let's talk first of all about what comparison is really costing us. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff. We all know that it makes us feel pretty shit, and we all know it wastes our time. We all know that we're spending far too much time scrolling away. I want to go deeper than that. Number 1, the first cost, the first hidden cost is what I call the opportunity cost of attention. There's this researcher at UC Irvine, and her name is Gloria Mark, and she studies attention and distraction. And she found something fascinating. Every time you switch your attention, like when you stop what you're doing to check your social media, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus on your original task. 23 minutes. So think about that. So you're working on something, right? You've got this project to do, you're engaged in something, and then you say, I'll just have a quick scroll, I'll just take a break. And even after you close the app, after you think that you've finished your break, your brain is still partially engaged with what you just saw. You're still, thinking about that person's perfect kitchen renovation, or their career win, or whatever triggered you, whatever was that for you that triggers the comparison. And for the next 23 minutes, you're not fully present with what you're actually supposed to be doing. And here's where it gets really interesting. There's research from Cal Newport and others on what happens in those moments when we're bored. Say when we're waiting in line at the grocery store, or we're sitting in our car in traffic, or we just have nothing to do. Those are the moments when our brains make really important connections. Those are the moments when creative ideas can emerge, and when we actually process our experiences and figure out what we think and what we truly feel about things. But what do most of us do in those moments? We pull out our phone and we scroll. We're checking Instagram or whatever in the grocery store line. We're browsing Pinterest while we're waiting for our coffee. We're just no longer allowing ourselves just to be and to be bored when all this magical stuff can happen in our brains. And every single one of those moments, when we're doing that, when we're attached to the device, those are moments when our brain could have been creating something. It could have been processing something, or just resting in a way that is truly restorative and nourishing. So let me give you some math that might make this really concrete, because I think it's quite alarming when you look at this from the numbers. The average woman in her 40s or 50s, me, spends about 2 hours a day on social media. That's 730 hours a year. That's over 30 full days, a full month of your life, every single year. What the Now, not all of that is obviously us falling into the comparison trap, right? But let's say even half of it is, that's still 365 hours a year when we're spending sort of caught up in this, I'm not enough, I need to be, if I had this, if I did that, if I looked like this, if I only found the time to do that. When we're kind of undermining ourselves in this way, instead of time that we could be spending, deepening real relationships, truly being present with important relationships in our lives, creating things. I mean, what could you build with 365 hours? I mean, you could learn a language, you could learn an instrument, you could write a book. So many people want to write a book. You could train for a marathon. I'm happy that I am not currently training for one, but I've done this a lot, and I'm telling you right now, every hour counts. It takes a lot of time. And you could build a business if that's something that you wanted to do, or a side hustle. You could deepen every important relationship in your life. You could have more adventures. The opportunity cost of comparison, it isn't just the time you spend scrolling, it's everything you're not building while you're busy watching other people's highlight reels. Food for thought. So let's look at the second cost. The second hidden cost is what I call goal hijacking. And this one it's sneaky, because most of us have no idea it's even happening. There's research showing that when we're exposed to other people's goals, especially on social media, it actually changes our own goals without us realizing it. We start wanting things we didn't want before. We start pursuing paths that aren't actually ours. Dr. Leon Festinger, who created social comparison theory back in 1954, understood that we look to others to evaluate ourselves. We look outward to evaluate ourselves. But he was studying this, obviously, 1954, in a pre-internet world, where you compared yourself to, a few dozen people at most who you actually knew or who were around you. Now we're comparing ourselves to thousands of people, most of whom are showing us a very carefully curated highlight reel. And our brain doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know the difference. It sees somebody's, inverted commas, perfect life and thinks, ooh, I should want that too. That's getting a lot of positive validation and it's all very glossy. I should want that too. There's this concept also in the research called borrowed dreams, which clearly doesn't take a behavioral scientist to explain what that means. The goals we pursue, not because they're actually aligned with our values, what matters to us or what would make us happy, but because they look good. Because we saw somebody else doing it, because it seemed impressive, because others were getting a lot of validation for pursuing them. And here's what makes this particularly insidious. These borrowed dreams, they feel like our dreams. Like you genuinely believe you want them. But if you trace back where they came from, you'll often find that they were seeded with comparison. They began with comparison. Maybe you decided you needed to lose weight, not because you felt unhealthy, but because you saw someone's before and after photographs. Maybe you think you need to start a side hustle, not because you have a burning desire to do so, to create something, but because everybody else seems to be doing it and talking about it online. Maybe you think you're behind in life, not because you're actually dissatisfied with your life, but because you're measuring it against somebody else's timeline, somebody else's priorities and timeline. I think this is like comparison fog, where comparison literally obscures what you actually, truly, genuinely value. You can't see your own path because you're too busy looking at everybody else's. And the cost of all this is you end up spending so much time, literally years, pursuing things that aren't even yours. It's so easy to do. We're climbing ladders, leaning against the wrong walls. We're building a life that looks good in photos, but doesn't actually feel good to live. I think every time we choose the borrowed dream instead of our own dream, we pay a price. Not just in time and energy, but in a real sense of disconnection from ourselves. It's that nagging feeling that something isn't quite right, even when everything looks good on paper or for the outside, or maybe you're getting external validation and people are like, wow, that's really impressive, that's great, but it's kind of hollow inside. Okay, cost number 3, the third hidden cost, and this is the one that really they all bother me, but this one bothers me a lot as a confidence coach. It's the confidence compound interest that you're missing. There's this psychologist, very famous in the world of confidence building, named Albert Bandura, and he developed this concept called self-efficacy, which is basically your belief in your ability to succeed at a specific task, right? And this research shows that the most powerful way to build that self-efficacy is through what Bandura called mastery experiences, actually doing something and succeeding at it, right? It's not watching somebody else do it. It's not learning about it in theory. It's not planning to do it someday, but it's actually doing it so that you can build this sense of mastery, right? But when you're stuck in comparison trap, when you compare yourself instead of doing, when you're scrolling and just thinking about it instead of actually starting it, and researching instead of actually practicing, every hour you spend comparing is an hour you are not spending building the actual competence, gathering actual evidence of your capability, creating actual real experiences that build that confidence, that sense of self-efficacy. And the research calls this comparison as avoidance. Like, we use comparison as a way to avoid the discomfort of being a beginner, of potentially failing, of not being good at something yet. It feels, we know it. It feels so much safer to watch from the sidelines and to compare ourselves and to feel a bit bad about it and just to keep scrolling than it does to actually try and possibly fall short. But we can never build a sense of self-efficacy if we're not actually having these experiences, these mastery experiences. And to do that, we have to be in the game. We have to be doing the thing. We have to be trying. We have to be out there engaged in the action, in the reality of life, in true life. And when we think about confidence, it really, and these self-mastery, these mastery experiences, they really compound, right? When you do something hard and succeed, it builds up one after another, and you get this greater sense of self-efficacy, which feeds this sense of confidence, and it makes you more likely to try the next hard thing. It makes you more likely to try harder things, to do more. And this is what I call like the confidence compound interest. Every small win builds on the last one. So you're creating exponential growth in your sense of what's possible for you. This sense of believing, yeah, I can do that, I can take that on, and I can do that. And that gets you in the game, that gets you in the arena. That gets you in the center of your life, right with the spotlight on yourself. But when you're stuck comparing, when we're sort of enthralled in the scroll and our attention isn't our own and we're just distracted by the next thing that the algorithm feeds us, we break that cycle. We're not gathering the wins. We're not building competence. We're not creating the experiences that could really help to build genuine confidence. And think about it this way. If you spend 2 years scrolling and comparing, at the end of those 2 years, you're exactly where you started. Maybe worse, actually, because you've gathered 2 years of evidence that everybody else is further ahead than you and better than you and smarter than you and prettier than you and fitter than you and more capable than you and more confident than you and more worthy than you. But if you spend those same 2 years building, trying, failing, engaging, learning, connecting, at the end of those 2 years, you're unrecognizable. You've compounded that confidence. You've gathered real evidence of your capability, and you've built something real in your life, something that truly matters to you. It's not just the time you waste, it's the confidence that you never build. It's the things that you never create. It's the life that you never fully engage in. It really is the compound interest you're missing out on while you're busy watching everybody else's returns. So those are 3, I think, very important and hidden costs in the comparison trap. The opportunity cost of your attention, the goal hijacking that has you pursuing dreams that aren't even yours, and the confidence compound interest you're missing while you compare instead of do, instead of engage. So if you're listening to this and, feeling like, Buckemer, that's a bit of a gut punch, that's okay. That means that you're recognizing yourself in this. And, the recognition is the first step, because the algorithms are really, really sticky. There is a whole very powerful engine at play here with these algorithms that have hijacked our attention. But I promised you a solution. So not a surface level, sort of just delete Instagram or just delete TikTok. Though honestly, that might not be a bad idea in some cases. But something deeper, something that addresses why we compare in the first place and build something stronger in its place. So let's talk about the one protocol here that will really work and that I want to share with you. So I call it the values, clarity, and replacement protocol. And I'm going to explain what that is. What most people get wrong about breaking this habit, the comparison habit, is thinking again that it's about willpower, about just deciding to stop, about deleting apps or setting the time limits. And, good luck if you want to try that. But for me, that wouldn't work. For lots of people, that wouldn't work. And the research tells us why. There's this principle in behavioral psychology. You can't just remove a behavior. You have to replace it with something else. So you can't just stop comparing. You have to start doing something else instead. But not just any something else. It has to be something that meets the same underlying need that comparison was trying to meet. That's really key. And this is where the values clarity work comes in. Because here's the thing, when you compare yourself to others, what you're really doing is trying to figure out if you're okay, if you're enough, if you're on the right path. And these are actually really important questions, and we need answers to them. But comparison is a terrible way to answer them. It's a terrible way to address them. It's outsourcing the answer to random strangers on the internet, and we all know how poorly that can go. They don't know anything about our actual lives or care about them. So what we need is an internal compass, a way to answer those questions. Am I okay? Am I enough? Am I on the right path? That comes from our own values, not from comparing ourselves to others. And that's what this does. So here's the protocol. Here's how it works. And there are 3 steps. And I'm going to walk you through them. So first, and if you've listened to other episodes of the podcast, or you've read the book, Choose Yourself, you will know that I talk about this a lot. You absolutely need to get clear on what you actually value. Not what you think you should value, not what looks good on Instagram, not what your parents or your peers valued, but what actually matters to phenomenal, fabulous you. So I'm going to give you a quick exercise, and you can do it right now if you want, or you can pause here and come back to it later. It takes about 10 minutes, and it's very powerful. Here's what to do. Get out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone, and I want you to think about a time in your life. Think about a time in your life when you felt most like yourself, most aligned, most alive. It doesn't have to be a big moment. In fact, it's often not. It might be a blooming random Tuesday afternoon, but it's a moment when you thought, this is what my life should feel like. It's a real sense of alignment and a yes, an instant. Greeter is offering a very special promotion just for listeners of Girl Choose Yourself. If you're interested in trying the Greeter service, you can get $10 off your first experience by entering the code Choose Yourself when you're making that booking. Choose Yourself is all one word, and you'll find more details in the show notes. An inner yes. Got a moment in mind? Okay, good. Now write down what was happening in that moment. Like, not so much the external circumstances, but what was present. What values were being honored? What values were being honored and expressed in that moment that you have in your mind? So let me give you some examples to help you identify them. So were you creating something in that moment? Then maybe creativity is a core value. Maybe you were helping someone. Then maybe service or contribution is a value. Were you learning something new? Then maybe growth or curiosity is important to you. Were you with people you love? Maybe it's connection then, or belonging as a value. Were you in nature? Then maybe peace or beauty is a value. Were you engaged in something that was really challenging? Then maybe courage or achievement is a value. There are no wrong answers here. Your values are yours, but you need to know what they are. It's too easy to get lost when you don't have this compass. And once you've identified core values, maybe 3 to 6, I want you to look at your current life and ask, how often are these values actually being honored? And this is usually the point where people have a moment of recognition, like they realize, I'm spending all my time on things that don't actually align with my values. I'm actually pursuing goals that look good, but they don't feel good. I'm comparing myself to people who are living completely different values, and that's why when I try and pursue those goals, it just never bloody well feels right. And then write down my core values are and name them. So that's your compass. When you're feeling lost or you're tempted to compare, you come back to this list and say, what choice right now would honor these values? I'm just going to have a sip of tea for my dry throat. Okay, now that you know your values, and the second step is creating what I call your instead of list. Okay, so this is the replacement behavior part. Remember, you can't just stop comparing. We're not just cutting off a behavior. We need something to do instead. But it cannot be random. It has to be specifically designed to meet the need that comparison was trying to meet, but in a way that actually honors those values that you've just clarified. So here's how you create this list. So if you look at your values list, for each value, you write down 2 to 3 specific actions you could take in no more than 10 minutes, absolute limit 10 minutes, that would honor that value. And again, I'm going to give you some examples to help with this. If one of your values, say, is creativity, as we mentioned before, your instead of list might include things like write for 10 minutes, sketch or doodle, take photos of something beautiful, right? Just creative actions. If one of your values is connection, your instead of list might include text a friend, something genuine, call my mom or my best friend or close relation, write in my journal about something I'm grateful for, or actually be present, fully present with whoever is in front of you. If your value is growth, your instead of list might include read for 10 minutes, practice something I'm learning, journal about what I learned today. You get the idea. These need to be specific, short, and frictionless. Put it on your phone if you want, put it on a sticky note on your mirror, make it visible. And here's the key. These aren't just random better activities. They're specifically chosen because they honor your values. They're answering the question, am I on the right path? But answering it from the inside out. Okay, final step. And this is where the rubber meets the road. And I've spoken about this before, and it comes from a researcher named Peter Gollwitzer, who studies what's called implementation intentions. Basically, it's the if-then protocol that I've mentioned in previous episodes. And the research is really clear. This is one of the most effective ways to change behavior. And here's how it works. Instead of just saying, I won't compare, I will create a specific plan. So if X happens, then I will do Y. So in this case, if I feel the urge to scroll, then I will, and then specific action from my instead of list. But you need to get even more specific than that. You need to identify your specific triggers. Maybe your specific trigger is when you're waiting in line at the grocery store, at the bus stop, for the train. Maybe it's being alone on a Saturday night, or feeling anxious on a Sunday night about work, or seeing a certain type of post just triggers you. Whatever your specific trigger is, you create an implementation intention for it. For example, if I'm waiting in line, then I will practice noticing 3 things that I can see, hear, and feel. That kind of brings you, that's a mindfulness practice pretty much. If I feel anxious on a Sunday night, then I will write for 10 minutes about what I'm actually worried about. If I open Instagram and see somebody's career win, then I will close the app and review my own wins from this week. So write down your top 3 triggers and beside them your specific implementation intentions for each one. And the research shows that people who use implementation intentions are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through on their goals because they're not relying on willpower in the moment. You've already decided what you're going to do. It's preloaded. You're not having to fight the urge. You're redirected into something that actually serves you. Okay, so a recap. This comparison trap, which is so easy to fall into once we begin the scroll, is costing us way more than just feeling bad for a few minutes. It's costing us the opportunity cost of our attention. All those hours, remember the 23 minutes to refocus? All those hours we could be creating, living, instead of consuming. It's costing us our actual goals. We're pursuing borrowed dreams instead of our own. And it's costing us this confidence compound interest we're missing while we're comparing instead of doing. We're not building that self-efficacy, not having the mastery experiences. And the solution is not willpower. It's building a stronger alternative. So we get clear on our actual values, so we have that internal compass to lean in on. We create our specific instead of list based on those values, and then we set up the implementation intentions for our specific triggers. Not a one-time fix, but a practice. We'll all be tempted to compare, but now we have something stronger to come back to. And your challenge, if you are willing to accept it, is to maybe think about spending the next week, the next 7 days, just implementing this protocol. Give it a go. Clarify the values, do the work, and see how that feels. Notice what changes, and notice what becomes possible when you stop spending so much time in the scroll, so much energy comparing, and start directing that energy towards things that actually matter to you. Remember, your life, all of our lives, they're happening right now. They're precious. They're not happening in someone else's highlight reel, not in some imagined future where we finally measure up, or we're finally enough, when we're finally okay and validated. It's happening right now. Thanks for being here. You are bloody amazing. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning into the episode this week. I hope you got a lot out of it. And if you did, please share it with somebody who you feel would benefit. And leave a review. Always greatly appreciated. Lots of free and paid resources to take things a step further. You can find those in the show notes. And hey, if nobody's told you this yet today, you are amazing. And the world is a far more beautiful place because you're here with us all. Stay cool. Bye.